It's 16 hours Ankara time, so let us begin our webinar. I would like to extend a warm welcome to the panelists who are with us today and to our viewers. Today, the Antalya Diplomacy Forum is hosting the webinar entitled Africa's Partnerships, Prospects and Opportunities for a Mutually Beneficial Economic Cooperation. My name is Osman Yavuz Alp. I'm an ambassador and the co-coordinator of the Antalya Diplomacy Forum, and I'll be your moderator today. But before I turn to today's topic, let me say a few words regarding the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. The Antalya Diplomacy Forum, ADF as we call it, is a gathering of high-level professionals who deal with diplomacy. It presents an excellent platform to exchange ideas and address current international issues. I invite all our viewers to visit our website and to follow us on our social media accounts. Today's topic is timely. Africa's importance in current world affairs is constantly on the rise. Indeed, according to a forecast in 2018 by the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, by 2050, more than a quarter of the world's population will be African. Another report by the African Development Bank states that real GDP in Africa is projected to grow by 3.4% in 2021. For Africa's partners, investing in Africa is another area with significant benefits. A report by the UN Conference on Trade and Development states that between 2006 and 2011, Africa had the highest rate of return on inflows of foreign direct investment, that is 11.4%. Africa's economic growth prospects are among the world's brightest. 6 of the world's 12 fastest growing countries are in Africa. And Africa's growing youthful population constitutes a formidable market. And of course, the African Continental Free Trade Area, which officially came into force on January 1st, 2021, seeks to establish a single market for the whole continent, bringing together 1.3 billion potential consumers. Such a powerhouse, of course, remains a priority in every country's geopolitical and economic consideration. Put simply, Africa is the future of the world. And in this future, Africa's interaction with the rest of the world is important. As in the famous African saying, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. To go far, as Africa has established several partnerships. Trade and investment are among the key components of these partnerships. They, of course, generate sustainable growth and jobs in Africa. Of course, the final aim, as the title of our webinar suggests, is to seek out a mutually beneficial economic cooperation where both Africans and their partners are winners. Africa-Turkey partnership is one of them. The driving philosophy behind this partnership is the belief of Turkey in Africa's vision of a better continent. To underscore the importance we attach to our partnership, we opened up 42 embassies in Africa and welcomed 36 African embassies in Ankara. These numbers will increase. In addition, of course, the Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency, TİKA, has 22 coordination offices across the continent. Last but not least, Turkish Airlines used to fly to 60 destinations in 39 countries before the pandemic. I hope that these flights will resume once the pandemic is over. As a result, Turkey's total trade with the continent increased to $25.3 billion by the end of 2020. So there is a growing interaction between Africa and its partners, including, of course, Turkey. And we should be looking beyond these exceptional COVID times to explore the potential. Against this background, of course, there are many questions which may be indicative. How can Africa and its partners further their cooperation? Africa's Agenda 2063. How far are we from set goals? And how can Africa's partners join forces? What would be the midterm and long-term effects of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area on trade relations with partners? And of course, as regards my country, as we're getting ready for the third Turkey-Africa Partnership Summit, how can we further explore prospective areas of cooperation from an African point of view? Today, we have very qualified guests to answer all these questions and go beyond. Our first speaker, Dr. Gilpin, is joining us from the US. As a chief economist, he's the head of the strategy, analysis, and research team in the UNDP Regional Bureau for Africa. Our second speaker, Mr. Hussein, is the acting director of industry, mining, investment, and tourism at the African Union Commission. Mr. Ojakol is the chief of staff of the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area. In that capacity, he is responsible for overseeing the agreement's implementation. And last but not least, Mr. Abdullahi is the ambassador of Djibouti in Ankara. As a seasoned diplomat, he follows closely African policies. He's also best placed to evaluate Turkey's partnership with the African continent. He's the dean of the diplomatic corps in Ankara. So our speakers' expertise is a testimony to how much we may learn from them today. So without further ado, let me welcome them once again, thank them once again, and turn first to Dr. Gilpin. Dr. Gilpin, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Osman Yabuslap, co-coordinator of the Antalya Diplomacy Forum, fellow panelists, distinguished guests. It gives me a great pleasure to be able to join you for this important forum. I'll start by extending kind wishes from our director at the Africa Bureau at UNDP, Mr. Ahuna Eziakonwa, who would have loved to join you here today, but couldn't do so because of other pressing commitments. She sends her best wishes and looks forward to the outcome of our operations. I'd also like to commend the leadership and organizers of this prestigious forum, which, as Ambassador has already mentioned, is both timely and is potentially pivotal because we want to be able to contribute to how we think about Africa's future development and economic trajectory. COVID-19 has been a major disruptor across Africa. Last year, UNDP's Human Development Index was negative for the first time in a quarter of a century. The pandemic is effectively reversing Africa's hard-won development gains. Over 40 million Africans are being pushed back into extreme poverty because of COVID-19. According to the World Food Programme, some 168 million Africans are now food insecure. The International Energy Agency estimates that 100 million Africans who could afford sustainable energy before the pandemic could no longer do so. We look at the globalized trade impacts of COVID-19 and see that because of the impacts on trade, productivity and earnings, Africa is being pushed into its first recession in 25 years, and external debt stress is becoming even more prominent. In the face of the pandemic, African countries are taking steps to contain the spread of COVID-19 and to mitigate its diverse socioeconomic impacts. Just a few weeks ago, UNDP's Africa Bureau launched a report that looked at the long-term consequences of COVID-19 on economic growth, on trade, and on socioeconomic development. And we concluded that unless immediate steps are taken and African countries continue to make strategic investments in social protection, job creation, and digital transformation, it will be very difficult to attain not just the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, but also the 2063 African Union goals. African governments also need to take steps to bolster Africa's vibrant non-formal economy. This non-formal economy has been the pillar of economic survival for millions of African households for decades. In addition, The rollout of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Arrangement in January this year holds great promise for regional integration, trade creation through industrialization, and a greatly expanded single African market. It was the former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill who was reputed to have said, "Never waste a good crisis." And at UNDP, we've been looking how we could work with African countries to overcome some of the challenges that COVID has put in their way and begin to build forward stronger, better, and more sustainably towards 2030. We have four main areas of support and focus: governance, social protection, green economy, and digital disruption. We are seeing African countries take steps to enhance governance prospects by strengthening state-to-society relations, also enhancing social cohesion and inclusivity. As far as social protection is concerned, we are seeing contributory and non-contributory forms of social protection on the increase, and seeing social protection not just as welfare, but as investments and targeted interventions to build human capital formation. On the green economy issues, we're seeing African countries take steps to rebalance nature, climate, and the economy. We're also seeing de-risking and nature-based solutions in a number of countries. Digital transformation is speeding up and scaling up change across the continent. We're seeing economic growth and economic development being reimagined because of the potential that digital disruption puts in, potential that it creates. From our perspective, we see Africa as a continent of promise. The ambassador has already highlighted some of the key data in this regard. And because we view it from a lens of promise and potential, where we have been able to identify 6 strategic impact areas where UNDP will be focusing as African countries rebuild. The first is the issue of natural resource governance. Second, we want to focus on youth employment and empowerment. Thirdly, structural economic transformation. Then sustainable energy, climate change, and peace and security. We are acutely aware that African countries cannot do this alone. We need strategic partnerships enabled to be able to accomplish this. But what we also recognize is that there are 4 important ways that partnerships must be recalibrated if they're going to be helpful. First is partnerships with Africa must not be dominated by development assistance and aid. We think that partnerships should focus on fairer trade as well as the transfer of skills and technology. Fundamentally, we believe that there should be a shift in emphasis from aid effectiveness to development effectiveness. Secondly, partnerships in Africa must not be dominated with measures to augment short-term liquidity. It's important, but it is not enough. We must also focus on solvency, i.e., ensuring that African countries are able to build the capacity to finance their own development. We must focus on adequacy to ensure that African countries have sufficient resources to close all gaps: infrastructure gaps, energy gaps, social protection gaps, fiscal gaps. And then thirdly, we have to make sure that focus on affordability, making sure that there's an increase in access to concessional financing. Africa has changed significantly over the last few decades. Today, about half of African countries are not low income, and so they don't have access to as much concessionality as they did in the past. And so we really need to reimagine, as we move away from short-term liquidity to solvency, how we ensure that the financing flows are affordable and not debt creating. Third, partnerships must not be dominated by conditionality, but must be underpinned by a transparent, rules-based framework. A framework that applies both to African countries and to Africa's development and trading partners. As an example, last year, the UNCTAD, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, issued a report that showed that $89 billion are lost to the African continent every year because of illicit financial flows. And this is an issue where we need a rules-based framework that would hold Africa's trading partners to the same standards that they abide by at the New York Stock Exchange or the London Stock Exchange. And so we need this to be able to plug these holes, these leakages that result in almost twice as much resources lost to Africa as Africa receives in overseas development assistance every year. And fourth and last, the new partnerships with Africa must not be dominated by projects and outputs, but must prioritize the attainment of longer-term impacts that are transformative, equitable, and sustainable. Together with with his partners, we do believe that African countries are ready to bounce back from COVID and build forward smarter, stronger, and more sustainably and equitably in ways that will allow every African citizen to benefit from the transformative potential of attaining the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2063 Agenda. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gilpin, for this enlightening introduction and enlightening briefing. I, of course, take away with full, of course, agreement your words concerning the future of Africa, that Africa is a continent of promise. And secondly, that Africa needs strategic partnerships, but these need to be calibrated. And of course, we do believe here, at least here in Turkey, that we need to find African solutions to African problems, but we can do that, of course, in full cooperation and in full dialogue. So I hope that the partnership schemes that the continent is undertaking with different countries, including mine, will respond to those expectations. Thank you very much again. I would now turn to Director Hussein Hassan Hussein for his intervention. Mr. Director, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Ambassador Osman Yavuzlab, the moderator and chairman of this important session. Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, representative of Mr. Raymond, representative of UNDP, His Excellency Ambassador Adin, Ambassador of Djibouti, my dear colleague, Dr. Silver, representative of the AFCFTA Secretariat. Good afternoon, all. Excellencies, it's my honor and a pleasure really to virtually address this distinguished audience on the special occasion for the Antalya Diplomatic Forum and the panel of the Africa Partnership Prospects and Opportunities for Mutually Beneficial Economic Cooperation. This forum is of critical importance as it provides an opportunity for Africa and Turkey to better align through dialogue our priorities to advance concrete solutions to mutual socio-economic problems. also to build on the strategic partnership between Turkey and Africa. I would like to give a quick overview on the Agenda 2063 and a relation between the Agenda 2063 and the constructive and strategic partnership between Africa and the key partner, Republic of Turkey. Agenda 2063, how far we are from the set goals, and now can Africa partner join factors. The adoption of Agenda 2063 in 2015, a clear continental response to achieve inclusive and sustainable growth based on the industrial transform of Africa's natural resources through added value. Agenda 2063, which embedded the Global Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, is aligned with this important global strategy goals, and is a forward-looking vision that projects Africa over the next 5 decades, considering it as an integrated and prosperous continent where growth is inclusive, continent at peace with himself, playing an effective role in the global scheme. In this vision, sound policies, better infrastructure and energy will drive Africa transform by improving the conditions for private sector development and boosting investment, entrepreneurship, and macro, small, and medium enterprises in the light of successful partnership with partner of Africa. In the context of Agenda 2063, transformation means diversity, the source of economic growth and opportunity in a way that promote higher productivities, resulting in sustained and inclusive economic growth. It also means supporting the development and industries that increase the impact of existing resources of comparative advantage and enhance Africa's global competitive position. On the implementation side, it is important to note that Agenda 2063 have 50 years horizon with 5-10 years plan framework. We are actually implementing the first 10 years plan, which focuses on the fast track projects and initiatives that have immediate positive impact on the perception of Africa citizenry with respect to the success of Agenda 2063. It is structured into 20 goals and 38 priority areas. Before 2020, Africa has made steady progress towards implementation of the 7 aspirations. The goals and priority areas identified progress and registered in the skinny, in the sense of consolidation of economic growth, with the continent being the second fastest growing zone in the world. On the social side, there are positive results with regards to the reduction of continental disease burden and diversification of African economy. There is a growing consciousness that economic transformation through industrialization is vital for consolidating and sustaining the improved growth record of Africa countries over the last decade. In line with this thinking, a number of initiatives have been undertaken to promote economic transformation, industrial development in Africa, action plan, which is called by IDA, BIDA, the initiative or strategy for development infrastructure according to the continent. Also launching of the Africa AFCFTA free trade area in January this year, in a measure to the adoption and starting of implementation of the digital transformation strategy for the continent, among others. Africa offers a huge opportunity for the continent and the market for 1.2 billion consumers for enterprises to do business across Africa and countries to diversify their economies in order to increase intra-Africa trade economic transformation and product diversification remain imperative for Africa commodities to become competitive internally and on the global market. Notwithstanding that important achievements, there are many challenges. Our continent growth has not yet reached the level of diversification expected to create the needed job for youth. This brings me another important point, which is how partners can join force to work hand with Africa, and what are the prospective area of cooperation. The continent's economic transformation agenda called for multi-faceted and all-inclusive development strategies. Achieving Agenda 2063 flagship programs, therefore, call for collective efforts, all Africa stakeholders. It's also required leveraging Africa partnership to that end. The role of Africa can play a key role for really partnering of development of Africa. I see 5 areas win-win partnership situation between Turkey and Africa. Number 1 is upgrading skills to achieve transform through industrialization, through aligning education with labor market, through the value chain and the joint venture, and really maybe supply chain or value chain cooperation. Economic freeze areas. Number 2, mobilizing resources for Africa's transformation and industrialization through the partnership between Africa and Turkey. Number 3, building soft and hard infrastructure for Africa economic transformation and industrialization through the partnership and win-win situation. Number 3, promoting commodity-based industrialization for inclusive and sustainable growth. Partnering and deepening in regional integration. In conclusion, let me re-emphasize that to achieve agenda of 2063, mutually beneficial partnership are crucial, and that interplay, Turkey can play a crucial role in sustainable agriculture, industrial production, among others. If we are to meet the challenges of structural transformation, and through innovation and investment in infrastructure, energy, resource-efficient solutions, Africa-Turkey partnership will have a major role in supporting inclusive economic growth. We should not forget really the successful and strategy, framework, cooperation, and partnership with Africa. We have an annual forum for Africa Turkey of business and private sector. We achieve a lot. We can have a common vision and common really goal and joint work plan. So we can build on what has been achieved so far. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director, for this briefing. And you have touched upon very important issues, and you have clarified, of course, the efforts that Africa is undertaking with regard to Agenda 2063. We, of course, know that it's a very long-term project. It's a long-haul effort. But, of course, while much needs to be done, there are also several success stories. The continent, of course, is growing fast, as you said, and youth job creation is, of course, one of the most important and crucial issues, as you touched upon. And there are many areas on which Turkey and Africa may join forces. You referred to agriculture, of course. This could be indeed one of the areas we may explore. May I now turn to Mr. Ocakol, as he's the right person to talk to with regard to intra-Africa trade and also the very recently established union. And this, of course, will be a game changer, but also it's a step in the right direction for Africa, as it will generate not only jobs, but also it will increase income for several African countries. But you have the details, sir, so let me pass the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and colleagues. Ambassador Abdullahi, who is the Dean of the Ambassadors in Ankara, Mr. Gelpin, colleague Hussein, and the dear listeners to this program. First of all, we would like to thank the Antalya Diplomatic Forum for inviting Secretary General Wamkele Mene to this forum, for which I have the honor to represent him. Apologies from him. He would really have liked to be in this forum, but as we are talking about building partnership, he's currently in New York with the UNDP and trying to build a partnership with the UNDP in terms of how far we can go in implementing the AfCFTA agreement. Let me try to put some small perspective by giving a background for those who are listening who may not know much about the AfCFTA. The AfCFTA agreement brings together the whole continent, 55 countries that have negotiated and agreed. Out of the 55, 54 have now signed the agreement, and 36 have ratified the agreement. I think my colleague Hussein will agree that in the history of the African Union, this is the one agreement that has generated the largest consensus and the fastest signatures as well as ratifications has been the AfCFTA agreement. And we believe that this is because the aspirations of the people are embedded in this agreement. And so there is a wide level of acceptability of the agreement. So the agreement has 3 protocols: the protocol on trade in goods, protocol trade in services, and the protocol on the rules and the procedures on the settlement of the disputes. But the agreement is wide-ranging, and it is going to incorporate protocol on investment, on intellectual property, on e-commerce, and on competition. Now, what does it mean for us and for our partners around the world? It means that we are bringing together one regime of investment, one regime of trade. And as such, we are bringing predictability into investment and into the trade regime in the whole continent. It means that we are 1.3 billion people. We have since increased it since 2016 when we started. We have added another 100 million people onto the population. So we are about 1.3 billion people now. And as you, Ambassador, in your opening remarks, you rightly said, by 2050, a quarter of the world's population will be living here. We expect to be about 2 billion in 2050, and that's a high number. So we bring predictability into the investment, we bring predictability into trade. With that population of 1.3 billion at the moment, and 3.4 trillion US dollars as a combined GDP. Now, when you look at the global data, That means that we are dealing here with the 8th largest economy. If you look at Africa as an aggregate economy that combined all the GDPs of the African countries, then you're looking at the 8th largest economy. But I was reminded the other day by my colleague that is actually now a little higher than the 8th. It might be around the 5th global economy. And that qualifies Africa then, if we're operating one economic entity, would then be sitting at the table with the power that be. So with that predictable regime, we think that the long-term, mutually beneficial relations between Africa and partners should be defined by investment and trade. The inflow of investment to Africa and the trading that should grow then from that investment between Africa and our partners. Why do we emphasize investment? Because for long, we have been exporters of raw materials. And it's a time that we would like to use this agreement to begin to look at adding the value to what we produce. The issues that Director Hussein has just been mentioning. We need to begin to grow our industrialization level. These are the aspirations that are espoused in the agreement, the industrialization of Africa. And we think that the long-term relations between us and our partners should be defined by a stronger inflow of investment, as well as a stronger trade regime between us and our partners outside the continent. This is what will define a long-term investment. In the agreement, Article 3, the objectives define the development of the regional value chains, the development of industrialization in the continent. Why? Because then we are creating a one regime. We are creating predictability in terms of the investment rules in the continent. So probably beginning from next year, you'll be having a single investment area that when you invest not only a single investment area, already we have a single trade area that started operations as of 1st of January this year. So when we conclude the protocol on investment, we will be having a single investment area in Africa, operating from a single investment law, a single investment regime in form of the investment protocol, whose negotiations should be starting anytime now and ending probably by the end of the year. We are expected to have concluded the protocol on investment and the protocol on IPR, intellectual property, that even when you transfer your technology to Africa, as you invest, your intellectual property would be protected by the intellectual property regime that is going to be negotiated. Now, at the FTA Secretariat, in terms of implementation, and to come to the question that you wanted me to address, in terms of what are we doing for the SMEs and for improving intra-Africa trade. Our strategy so far has been operationalizing the instruments that are integral parts of the agreement. We have operationalized the various subcommittees. Critical among this is the reforms that we are expecting to happen in customs administration in order to be able to enhance, to improve the flow of goods in Africa. So we expect reforms, customs reforms to be undertaken. In this respect, we have had meetings of the technical persons on customs and border clearance for the FCFTA trading. We are moving on to ensure that standards in the continent are harmonized. Because if we do not harmonize the standards, then we will not be able to enhance intra-Africa trade. So standards harmonization is one of the key things that we are moving to undertake. And in this respect, we are working with the Africa Regional Standards Organization are we going to be convening a meeting of the regulators of standards among the member states to now begin to think about what are the products and what are the processes that we need to do in order to be able to harmonize the standards. The other critical thing that we are doing is to ensure that the non-tariff barriers reporting and elimination is handled in a very efficient manner. And a tool has already been, an online tool has already been developed by our colleagues in the DTI. And that has been handed over to the AFCFTA Secretariat to now manage the tool for the monitoring and elimination of non-tariff barriers. Then we have a program that we are developing right now for the capacity enhancement of small and medium enterprises to trade across the borders. Now that capacity enhancement is targeting small, medium enterprises. In our studies, we know that 40% of our trading within the continent is defined by the small and medium enterprises. Any region of the continent, whether you're talking about COMESA, whether you're talking about ECOWAS, whether you're talking about the East African community, whether you're talking about the South African development community, 40% of the trading in those regions are defined by the small and medium enterprises. Women and young men crossing the border every day, meeting the needs of the neighboring countries. I have seen products from ECOWAS region in places as far as Eastern and Southern Africa, and they did not follow the defined shipping route. They actually followed the overland route, and that trade must be defined by the small and medium enterprises. And recognizing the importance of the small and medium enterprises, that's why we are targeting this group, this particular constituency, in terms of the capacity enhancement. We are discussing with the banks to ensure that our partnership with the banks give them leverage in terms of financial capability for the SMEs. All the banks have developed some programs, and we are in touch and we are in discussions with a number of banks, EcoBank, UBA, ABSA. Just this morning, we're having a discussion with ABSA Bank. We're talking with Zenith Bank. We're talking with KCB to bring, the financial capability to the SME, to the women traders across the border. So we see the agreement not just as a trade agreement, we see it as a development instrument. And that's why we've been emphasizing the issue of investment. So to sum up, our partnership in the future with all our partners should be defined on the basis of the inflow of investment to Africa for value addition, for resources for infrastructure development, as my colleague Hussein has been talking about, for energy, to be able to energy interconnectivity for us to be able to handle. So that is Ambassador and dear listeners, what I can say at this moment, and we are open to questions. Thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for this detailed information. And what you said is very important because the Free Trade Area Initiative is a brand new initiative, and it affects, of course, all the partners of Africa. And of course, when in my opening speech, I said that Africa was a powerhouse, and your intervention vindicated what I said when you talked about the growth of the African economy and how it's set to grow even further. Investment and trade is an important issue of your intervention, an important part of your intervention. And at least for my country, I am pleased to announce that, of course, our direct investments value more than $6 billion US, and the projects that we have assumed, that our companies have assumed, amount to $71.1 billion US. And we have assumed more than 1,150 projects in Africa alone. And also the standards harmonization is important, as you noted, because the foreign companies are affected by those. Let me now turn to Ambassador Abdullahi, who of course has a slight advantage maybe over the other panelists because he's located in Ankara, so he's in close contact with Turkish authorities and that he's following very closely the Turkey-Africa partnership. But we would like to hear from you from the African perspective, where we stand and what we can do. Sorry, Mr. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. And at the utmost, I would like to express on behalf of the African Diplomatic Group in Ankara our sincere gratitude for having invited us to this very important forum on Africa partnership prospects and opportunities for a mutually beneficial cooperation. I want to thank the MFA of Turkey and the Antalya Diplomacy Forum and you as well, Mr. Osman Yabzel. You have been indeed very instrumental on this forum. As you all know, Africa through the African Union has developed many partnerships with number of countries and continental entities as AU, EU, Forum, or African Union, Arab State. We have partnership with China, Turkey, France, UK, Russia, so on and so forth. Some have resulted in concrete projects and others needs, of course, now to be reviewed and to be redesigned. I cannot elaborate more on that as I don't know in details the nature and the forms of those partnerships. But I can say some few words about the Turkey in Africa-Turkey partnership, and based on facts and figures over a short period of time. As you know, probably since the launch of the policy of openness to Africa in 2005, carried out by the government of Turkey, the relations have increased significantly, and between the continent and Turkey. Africa has today, as Ambassador Yabzel mentioned earlier, Africa has 36 embassies and we'll be probably having another one very soon. And Africa is by far the largest diplomatic group in Ankara. And Turkey's presence in Africa is consolidated as well with 42 embassies and 60 destinations for Turkish Airlines. Our relations increased significantly in recent years in the fields of trade, energy, agriculture, education. And in this specific sector of education, I would like to mention that we have more than 14,000 African students in Turkey, and Turkey is providing roughly 4,500 scholarships. The trade volume today is around $25.5 billion, as mentioned earlier by Ambassador Yabzel. But I think it's very important to underline that this is representing a huge step forward in a few years, in a really very short period of time. But we all know that there is not enough. For example, as a matter of fact, if today I would like to send a container from Turkey to Djibouti, it's going to be difficult for one reason. It's almost impossible to find an empty box and a ship available. I have to book at least 2 months in advance if I want to ship a container to Djibouti. This is a clear indication how the trade between the Horn of Africa and Turkey is really increasing and the trade is really getting very well. On the BOT model, we can say that some projects have been already carried out. And among them, I would like to mention, the new airport in Dakar, the airport in Niamey in Niger, as well as some hotel infrastructure made by some Turkish business people. And we can mention as well some direct investment in Ethiopia in the textile sector and electric cable as well. And many other investments that are going on right now in Senegal, in Angola, in Sierra Leone, in metal industry, energy, and housing. This is the type of partnership really we need, to build and extend at the regional and continental level. Ultimately, I would like to insist on the fact that Africa-Turkish partnership is very new, really very new. But from my point of view, this partnership has a promising future. We need now to redesign and to redefine this partnership in the framework on the continental free trade area. That's really something very key. And this is where the Africa-Turkey partnership future resides. We are convinced that we have the potential, all of us in Africa, we have the potential and the capabilities to double and triple, the figures, trade volume, but in a very balanced way, in win-win trade relations. That's something very, very important. As you have mentioned, and already, Africa is a huge continent, the second most populous, continent in the world, 1.3 billion inhabitants, which represent roughly, 17% of world population. Africa is in the same way, immensely rich in natural, agricultural, animal resources. And this is a continent, with a bright and promising future. It has recorded exceptional growth rate in the recent years. Of course, we faced some, how can I say, setback, from the COVID-19. We are very confident that Africa will recover. The economies of many African countries will recover by 2021. On the other side, Turkey is an industrial powerhouse, no doubt on that. It has a strong and efficient industrial base. And this is my feeling and the feeling of many African ambassadors in Turkey. This is the right time to build and strengthen and grow the Turkey-Africa partnership that we want. So what is this Africa-Turkey partnership that we want? We would like to really, the Turkish business, the Turkish private sector to understand that we have new dynamics in Africa. Economies are evolving. We have strong capabilities, and we would like the Turkish private sector to invest directly in African. And in the areas related to the industries, as the main objective for all of us is intra-African trade. And I'm very happy, to hear from Mr. Silver Jacol from the EFCTA Secretariat that they are providing predictabilities in the terms of trade and investment in the near future. And I think that Turkish private sector should learn from the Secretary of Continental Free Trade area how the trade is going to be on the future. There is one thing that I would like to share with you. We are moving ahead. Trade is really going very well. The trade volume is about 25.5, and we will be probably reaching very soon and very quickly, 26 or even 27 billion within maybe even less than 1 year. But the main objective is it sustainable? Can we move this way? Can we still continuing selling and exporting from Istanbul, from Earth, from another port to Africa? I don't think that this is the right way to do that. For one reason, we are not targeting the real market. We are just targeting, the middle class, that those who have, let's say, the financial capability to buy, the products. At the end of the day, the products, when it reaches Africa, is still very expensive. For first reason is that, and this is what we are hearing from many business people from Africa when they come to Turkey, the cost of the transaction is very high. When they are opening an LC from Africa, any capital in Africa, and they are sending the money to Turkey, they need a middle bank, intermediary bank, which most of the time are located in Europe. And this is making really the cost of the transaction very expensive. The other issue is, of course, the transportation. So due to COVID-19, we have kind of a disruption of the chain of transportation, and the cost of a container, of a shipment, with the insurance and all these things are making the product really very, very, very high. So my feeling is that really it's really high time, if we want to make this a very successful partnership, to convince Turkish private sector to move to build joint venture, to build BOT in a model, but to build something in Africa, to be in the market. This is all my message, and this is the what we have been conveying to the Turkish private sector as African ambassadors. We went to so many places. We reached out to in Istanbul Commerce, Antalya Chamber of Commerce, Kayseri, Konya. We went to so many places, and this is the message that we are conveying: being into the market, investing in the market. As Africa, we really invest in seaport, airline, efficient banking system, and now it's time, to the private sector to move ahead and to build and grow a real Africa-Turkey partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. You have touched upon the African perspective, but an African perspective based on Ankara, and you have, of course, reflected the voice of several African ambassadors here in Ankara on the way ahead and what should be done. And obviously, this is something that not only Turkey, but also, of course, other partners should take into account, because the problems are the same. And you mentioned, of course, the intra-African trade and the promises that this venture holds, but also, of course, the issue of the intermediary banks and the transportation problem. At least I may say with confidence that many Turkish companies are involved in infrastructure projects in Africa. For example, in Ethiopia, of course, we have the railroad project, but also I do believe in other parts of Africa, we are working on this. So I hope that other partners, and I do believe that they're also doing the same, that they will work on those infrastructure projects. We have some few minutes left, so maybe we can go through a very short Q&A session with one question each, and if you can keep your answers short, like 2 minutes, we will have time to give the floor to everyone. May I turn to Dr. Gilpin and ask him about the shortcomings this time that the UNDP is facing with regard to programs towards Africa, because you are, of course, a UN institution, and therefore you depend on your members, on the UN members. So in a nutshell, what are the areas where partners can do more? Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Yes, the UNDP depends on partners, and we do have a number of enduring partnerships across the world, and areas where partners can do more. The first area would be to be more long-term. Too many partners have very short-term projects they want to complete within budget cycles, and Africa's problems are much more enduring. It requires longer-term partnerships. The second is one I mentioned earlier, is that we need to reimagine partnerships to go beyond the provision of aid to strengthening trade ties, ensuring that there's a rules-based framework that works for everyone, and thirdly, facilitating the transfer of skills and technology to industry and SMEs on the continent.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gilpin. Director Hussein, may I ask you about the agriculture potential of Africa? We know that this potential is great, but of course, Africa needs investment and know-how, especially, of course, for proper irrigation, land irrigation. How can partners, including Turkey, contribute to African countries in this field? You have the floor. Director Hussein, I don't know if you can hear me. Director Hussein, can you hear me? If you can hear me, I think you have to turn on your microphone.
Could you kindly repeat your question, please?
Sure. I was going to ask about the agricultural sector. We know that Africa has this potential, but needs investment and know-how. So, especially with regard to proper irrigation. So how could partners contribute to Africa in this regard?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Actually, as it's well aware that Africa has around 60% of the arable land in the world, and the employment of the agriculture sector is the biggest or the major part of the structure of the employment. Of course, the investment in the field of agriculture development in Africa, one of the most attractive and which have a highest return for really investment among other sectors. We have a number of the framework adopted by heads of states, such as a CADEB and other. CADEB is an initiative for development agriculture sector in Africa, which has a really a very well monitoring and evaluation system, and it moving ahead. Also, one of the agro-industry is one of the major really sector has a high potential for rapid and growth across Africa. This really sector of agribusiness can absorb the most of the foreign direct investment, which could really add a really high value on the investment and make a win-win really situation and common profit from to the investors as well as for Africa. So it is not only the agriculture itself as a primary phase, also for adding value to the agricultural products through the partnership, also can really work on links up the value chain from Africa with Turkey, with other. So this is really one sector, the agricultural sector, which have a high potential really to grow rapidly in the next really period. In addition to that, also the technology of agriculture, one of the key areas usually can be really work with the partnership through really to maximize the productivity of the agriculture in Africa. Research and development, smart smart agriculture in the area to have a really kind of the green agriculture, organic. All of these really products have a high demand from all the world. All of this area has a huge opportunity for really cooperation and investment between Africa and all over the world, and Turkey as well. The services of agriculture, the infrastructure for agriculture, all of this issue, transport for agriculture, all of this issue has really a high potential really for cooperation and moving well. All of this issue really could be addressed through the relation and the partnership between Turkey and Africa in the near future, and could be addressed really among the common experts from the two sides. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would now turn to Chief of Staff, Mr. Ocakol, and I would like to ask you, sir, if you could tell us what any Turkish or any either European or US company would face with regard to the custom duties, the additional custom duties for third countries in Africa, investing or exporting into Africa. We know that you're trying to balance the additional import custom duties, but in a nutshell, could you highlight this issue, please?
Thank you very much. I hope that I have gotten the question clearly, that what is the kind of customs duty that we levy on third-party imports into Africa? First of all, I think we are still a free trade area. What we have signed is a free trade area agreement. But in one of the objectives, I think the broader objective is eventually we build into a continental customs union. So at the point when we are a customs union as a continent, then we will have a common external tariff, for third-party imports. So at the moment, each customs territory, whether we are talking customs unions like ECOWAS, East African Community, SACU, and so on, levy charges, under common external tariff. And all the other customs territories, which are FTAs, they also levy their own duties as, individual countries. So each customs territory at the moment levies its own, duty. However, we have within the agreement an article that defines trade relations with third countries, with third parties. Now that article does not prohibit member states from entering into agreement with third parties, as long as what they agree with third parties will be equal to what they are offering to the other members. However, when they offer more, better, preferential treatment to other parties, then that preferential treatment would be extended to the members of the AFCFTA on a reciprocal basis. I think that is what the agreement says. Now, in terms of, and I hope I have captured the question as you had put it. Now, the other thing is that there are agreements that member states of the African Union entered into before negotiating the AFCFTA. Now, those agreements are also, preserved, so to say, by the agreement, because the AFCFTA agreement will not vary, will not take away the rights and obligations that member states had entered into with the other parties before signing the AFCFTA agreement. So that is also taken care of within the articles of the agreement. Now, in relation to the question that you asked my colleague Hussein, let me put the perspective. We have in the continent 860 million hectares of land, arable land, 860 million hectares. We are only using a quarter of that at the moment, 240 million hectares. That is what we are cultivating at the moment. That's what we are using as arable land. Now, what are the capacities that we'll need to be able to fully utilize the 860 million hectares? I should say the capacity to deliver water for production. That is water for irrigation, water for livestock, water for, and so on and so forth. Then we need equipment, agricultural equipment for mechanized agriculture where need be. We need equipment for post-harvest or post-production, post-harvest equipment, drying capacity to dry capacity to maintain the quality of the product as it comes from the garden or from the farm, in order to be able to maintain or to keep to the SPS requirements of the market, the sanitary and phytosanitary measures. And that's why I was talking earlier on the standards harmonization. So then we need also the capacity to ensure that the land does not lose its fertility, that we can go into sustainable agriculture that makes sure that we are using the land resource in a sustainable manner. So that those are some of the things that the capacities that we probably need in terms of agricultural development. Thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for your answer. Last but not least, I would turn to Ambassador Abdullahi for his comment. And you have the last word. So I think it is important for us to know from your perspective whether Turkey and the other partners who are investing and developing joint projects with Africa can actually cooperate among themselves for a better interaction with Africa. What kind of projects can Turkey and other partners, European Union or India or China, do jointly in Africa? Is there such an expectation? Are there any fields on which we can cooperate? You have the floor, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. And first of all, I would like just to say that we had recently an agricultural exhibition in Ankara. Many African ambassadors were there, and one of the main topic was how can we build an overall strategy. As the Chief of Staff Silva Ojokor was saying, it's not just about promoting agriculture. It's about having the big picture, and the big picture is how can we as Turkey and as African continent can we come together and from the very beginning, thinking about building a plant, for tractors and equipment and fertilizers and food processing and packaging, as you all know, and financial services as well, because the most important thing is to comprehend and to understand, as the Chief of Staff was saying, that agriculture has a future and has a bright future, not just for export, but for African trade. And this is, really what we would like the private sector understand and move ahead with African investors and African financial services as well to fulfill some achievement on this sector. The second thing is that, and I would like, to ask this question, to Chief of Staff Silva Ojokor, and maybe one day we would like, to have Zoom meeting between African ambassadors, African diplomatic group in Turkey and the CFTA Secretariat. This is, as we would like to promote Turkey, Africa in trade and investment. One of the recurring question which is coming again and again and again is, if I'm going to Africa, one country, when do you think that the market of the region, of the continental market will be open to us? When can we benefit from this opportunity? And so I know that the CFTA has been put in place recently, and it's going to take probably some time to make effective the free trade area. So, Chief, what can you say about that? When do you think that the Africa free trade area would be really effective? Knowing that some countries are not ready, and some of them would like, of course, to move ahead very fast.
Okay, thank you very much, Ambassador. It's a very interesting question. First of all, from the point of view of the Secretariat, here in Accra, we have engaged already the ambassadors of African member states that are based in Accra,
yes,
taking them through the AFCFTA, what is the AFCFTA promises, and what we need to do to deliver that promise as member states, as AFCFTA Secretariat, and as partners. And we would have no problem extending the same to the African ambassadors based in Ankara. With you as the head, the dean of the diplomatic corps in Ankara. We would look up to you. We work together in terms of delivering, bringing the AFCFTA to the missions in Ankara, in order then that to promote the partnership between Africa and Turkey in terms of exploiting the opportunities that are there in the AFCFTA. Now, yes, not all countries at the moment have been ready. The trading has been launched as of 1st of January this year, and some shipments are already taking place. I can tell you that Ghana, where is which is hosting the Secretariat, has made shipments to a number of countries under the AFCFTA trading. Notifications are being sent to the Secretariat in terms of the administration of the rules of origin, in terms of the certificates of origin and so on. That is already taking place. The harmonization of customs procedures is taking place. Tariff offers have been made by about 41 countries out of the 54 that have signed. 41 have already made the tariff offers. Now, on analysis, some of the tariff offers are already meeting the agreed modalities. The agreed modalities, Ambassador, as you know, are 90% tariff liberalization, then 7% sensitive, and 3% exclusion list. Now, they are customs union. I think Economic Community of Central African States, they made already their full tariff offer with 90% liberalization, 7% sensitive, 3% exclusion, and a couple of other countries. But so far we have 41, and we are analyzing the tariff offers. So we think that by the end of June, as mandated by the Assembly of Heads of State, we should have concluded this, and we should be having, but in terms of counting the start of trading, we started in January, and we will count 5 years from 1st January 2021. We will say 90% tariff will have been liberalized after 5 years for the developing countries, and then after 10 years by the least developed countries. So that is what I can say about the question. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. The discussion is timely and very enlightening, but unfortunately we have reached the end of our webinar. Nevertheless, let me say that I encourage very much the idea of having African ambassadors in Ankara, having a Zoom meeting with the Secretariat, and I encourage you to do that, hopefully, in the near future. I want to thank, of course, once again, all our distinguished panelists and for sharing their valuable expertise with us. And I also want to thank the viewers around the world who have attended this webinar. The Antalya Diplomacy Forum will continue, of course, its online activities. So please keep following us on our social media accounts for upcoming live events. Until the next time, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.